Welcome to the Theory of Democracy. I'm Garrison, and I'm here with Sarah. And wow, I forgot your name.
Kevin.
Hey, Kevin.
Nice to meet you, Garrison.
Nice to meet you too. So we're going to talk about uh, democracy. And, well, can you lead us in, Kevin?
Democracy. I did a little bit of reading on the subject throughout my entire life. I,
He's a scholar on the subject, honestly.
I like to think that I'm a scholar of many subjects, democracy being one of them. Democracy is a system of government that's kind of been discussed in practice since ancient times, ancient Greece. Athens is often cited as kind of the birthplace of democracy. The property owning male could get together with other property owning males and put together a government to decide what they thought was a good idea for the rest of Athenian society. Sparta, shortly after, got into democracy, although they just shouted at each other, was my understanding. They got in the town square and kind of just yelled their vote out instead of any sort of secret ballot, so that's fun to think about. Little contrast of society there.
Are you in favor of democracy?
I think democracy is great. If only, I think a lot of that stems from the fact that I've lived with democracy my entire life, and, it's easy to appreciate something that has
Worked for you?
worked for you the entire time you've been alive. And in comparison, like, what do we really have to compare it to? I think that democracy is a pretty solid system in the sense that it has been continuing on for so long, despite many other systems of government being proposed. And yet the world here, not the entire world, but much of it, has kind of collectively agreed that it works. It works pretty well. I think it's a decent system. The majority rule is not always the best, which is why the better systems of democracy have things like we have in the United States, our separation of powers.
Right.
Goes a lot into keeping majority rule in check. The judicial system's a great way to kind of make sure that the minority doesn't get oppressed, or at least tries not to get oppressed. Beyond that, I think it's a pretty decent system. It's certainly better than theocracy, meritocracy, the monarchy,
Dictatorships.
dictatorships. Yeah. What are they? Aristocracy. Rule of the elite.
Okay. So you say that it's good, but has its flaws here and there.
I mean, everything does.
Sure.
I think we say everything in moderation.
Right.
Certainly, it's interesting because we tend to derive our rule of law from a system of morals that we collectively agree, like, we shouldn't do these things. And I mean, like, an actual collective. For the most part, we can all agree that things like murder and theft are wrong. We shouldn't do them, and fringe people may have a different, but we call them fringe. We don't believe them to be, and we use our democracy to let those fringe people know that we don't agree with that behavior.
I like that term fringe. It's a very interesting way of kind of suggesting somebody that's kind of on the outskirts of idealism.
Right. That's. I tend to think that that's a good way to, especially considering it is. You think of fringe, it's a bit. I don't want to go so far as to say deranged, but certainly when talking in morality, you might be able to bring that up. Like, we say outside of society, so sociopath, as it were.
Yeah.
But that's, again, those people, that kind of behavior, I think, is pretty well kept in check by systems like democracy. As again, we don't. The majority tends to feel that it doesn't want to be hurt. It recognizes things that do hurt it, and it's easy to form a majority when it comes to things like heinous crime,
Right, yeah.
loss of life, loss of property, that kind of thing. At least in our modern, I want to say post writing, has been pretty well agreed upon throughout developed societies.
So, as it stands today in our current democracy as it is, would you consider yourself on the far left or on the far right or somewhere in the middle? Where do you stand as far as your personal views about?
I'm a solid mix of both. I am very much a libertine.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in the right to rule myself as much as I can, and I also don't believe that my right to self-governance should not infringe upon anybody else's. So I feel like a lot of the more social aspects that you could, social issues that you could bring up, I'm probably going to fall on the let people do what they want to do aspect, and on the economic side of things, I am more on the side of please don't touch my money.
Okay, interesting. I don't know. What about you, Garrison? Where do you stand?
I would definitely say I'm in the middle. I think especially now, the two extremes have a lot of like problems, and conflicts that I disagree with on both sides. Some of the quote unquote extremes of both right and left ideology, I agree with to some extent. Yeah.
Well, we all sound very political here.
Was that sarcasm?
A little bit, yeah. Well, I mean, it just sounds like with the way things are today in our own society, it sounds like we're kind of touch and feel, like you don't really want to step on anyone's toes because you don't know where they stand in their own belief system.
Well,
does that sound right?
I wouldn't even say that. I am reluctant to give a hard opinion on something because there's just so much information to sift through. So I'm a little reluctant to fully.
Because you don't want to give like an uneducated opinion. Is that right?
Yes, to some extent, yes.
Here's a thought on that though. It is I believe that it is your responsibility to do the best you can to educate yourself, and yet still you must form an opinion. And it's your choice whether or not you want to share that opinion with people, but I think that if you care about your opinion, it's beneficial to share it at the same time. And you don't need all the information. Your argument or your point of view should be challenged, and hopefully, if the person that comes at you with relevant, better information can change your mind, they can. I think a lot of our current issue has to do with, our current issue in this United States that we live in, our divisive politics, it just has a lot to do with our lack of willingness to objectively take a look at the other side. I think it's so easy to get into an us versus them mentality and just disregard anything that comes out of them as being nonsense. When just because you don't agree with the facts or the research that they've done doesn't make it any less relevant. And it very well may be wrong, but this is what they've come up with. And it's been an interesting little past couple weeks because I've been very outspoken on social media recently since the Charlottesville the Charlottesville event. It's simply in defense of free speech. And in the defense of free speech, you have to not only defend the right of the Nazi to speak, but also the right of the communist. But you also can't support their ability to hit each other. And it makes for a very interesting, because I've been, grouped in with both sides at this point now. When ideologically, I don't agree with either of them.
But you believe in their right to free speech.
I absolutely do. I have Voltairean aspect on it. I fully believe that you have the right to say what you want, and I definitely will fight to the death to defend your right to say it. Once you start throwing punches, I might have an issue, but up until that point,
My question for you about that, on that standpoint, is what if the punch isn't a physical punch? What if the punches are like a proverbial punch?
I don't believe, and this is a personal opinion, I don't believe in legislating towards feelings.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that with our current government as it is, that men in the government do not legislate with feelings?
They definitely do, and I don't think that it's necessarily a benefit.
Okay.
I don't necessarily advocate towards legislating to science either.
Mm-hmm.
I advocate towards legislating towards solid arguments, and good evidence. But at the same time, evidence can be overturned at any moment with new information. So a healthy balance of both merit and political discussion.
So yeah.
Once you start, it's really hard to
It's hard to verbalize.
It's hard to verbalize, and because I don't want to dismiss. They say perception is reality, and I don't want to take away anybody's own reality.
Mm-hmm.
But your reality is not necessarily good for your neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you start talking about laws that have to deal with everybody's neighbor, I don't think there's a place for legislating towards your reality, my reality.
Mm-hmm.
When again, it's complicated. I don't want to take away your reality. I think that your feelings are valid and beneficial, but not necessarily to the greater good.
Interesting. So, I mean, I kind of asked you guys what your political standpoint was. I'm just going to kind of go off on a tangent about mine. I am a utilitarian. I consider myself a utilitarian. And if you look that word up, it kind of means the betterment for the majority, or the betterment for the people as a whole, even if it's not good for everybody else. Even if they don't see it as such. So that's kind of like my point of view, I guess. It's like if you can help as many people as possible with what you're given, then you've done a good job.
That's interesting. It's interesting. It seems like it would go in conflict with my...
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a little bit,
Yeah, it's interesting. I think does that stem from a belief of like where's your breakdown on where to do you believe in more of a governing to the individual or governing to the groups?
It goes a little bit of both ways, kind of like what you guys think.
Okay.
So I'm in political science classes right now. So I'm studying government as it is, and democracy, the word means governed by many.
Correct.
So that kind of
Power to the many.
yeah, power to the many, which is amazing. I think given the fact that a lot of people have the power and the ability to do so, to make a change is absolutely phenomenal. However, with the way our government is set up right now, we're not actually a true democracy.
No.
We are a federalist republic, which means that we are represented by people that we choose will best represent the majority of however small of a group that we are, county, city, state, national, represent us on some sort of level. So given that idea, with the being considered a democracy, we're not ruled by many. We are ruled by very few. And so for me, it's like, if you really want to make a change, are you really, I don't know. It's like a touch and go, right? So
it certainly is. I wonder then at that point though, like we still are giving we definitely are. There's no question we're a representative democracy.
Yeah.
A republic of sorts. At the same time, our that's the I don't know that the system is broken, so to speak. We're still given if anything, the candidate system of using a representative in government helps consolidate. I think that's what the purpose was. The purpose was to try and get as many good points into one person as possible, and they're supposed to still follow the will of their electorate And they don't always do that, which is why we have the system to prevent the to have that elected official go against his electorate. Because sometimes it's necessary for the betterment of society, according to people that put together our system of government.
Yeah, I think the fault in where our government stands is that they're not giving the right words to what it is that they mean. So
That's very true.
yeah, and some say that would mean it's like a hypocrisy, and that's what it is. It's doing something and meaning something different. So
Clarity in language is hard.
it
Especially
is.
for everybody.
Yeah, and until you find the right words to discuss what you're meaning, then how are you supposed to give words to the people that are telling you these things? How are you supposed to understand what it is they're trying to tell you?
Unfortunately, we still got to do it. Imagine that it's the best we can.
Somebody's
Until
got to
we can
do it.
Come up with I don't want to, because is the other option silence? Is the other option not going to legislation? And
No,
I don't really know.
I don't think that's an option. I don't
It's
think
not,
that is.
which is why again I propose that we're making the best of what we have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think. I feel very strongly about representative government. Without going too far onto a tangent, I don't believe there's a place for the House of Representatives in this country anymore.
Ooh, yeah.
I'm a big favor. I would continue to keep the Senate, but we live in a modern technological world where we are all connected by these dumb devices that buzz in my pocket. And if I were so inclined to be involved in democracy, I could be. Like, the purpose of the House of Representatives was to not only govern but give a voice to people who were far away from the Capitol and would take days to weeks to get there. So for the 1700s, it made a lot of sense. You send one representative for your people. That representative is supposed to be consistent with the values that you voted for, and then they vote, and they're there in Washington for their 2-year tenure or whatever, and it's great. But today, it doesn't seem necessary when we are more connected to our government than we ever really have been in the past. And I think that there's definitely still some merit, which is why I would keep the Senate, to having an elected representative to keep the body in check. But the concept of representation seems like it's been superseded by technology to me. That doesn't mean it's feasible to just go and be like, the House of Representatives is goofy, let's get rid of it. But if there were ways to go about doing that in a respectful legislative way, I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting viewpoint. I never thought about it like that, about where it stands.
I imagine a world where you could wake up one morning, decide that, like, what basically the way things work right now, you can look at it from the standpoint of a lobbyist doing it, but at the same time, any citizen can write up a bill, send that bill to the representative and say, look, I'd like to see this discussed in Congress, because that's the way it's supposed to work. Well, what if you just eliminated that middleman? What if you woke up one morning and said, I thought of a bill, and you posted it to the United States Forum,
and people got a chance to vote on it.
People got a chance to vote on it.
Huh.
I also believe in more ridiculous things in terms of voting rights at that point as well, because I feel at that point you might need more weight to a vote than other people's vote. But that's getting into a very...
now you know. Okay, hold on. We got 2.5 minutes left before we got to take a break. So now you're going to have to go on to it.
I believe that if you have a vested interest in the country, in other words, you are paying property taxes, which I also don't agree with, but that's a libertarian thing, then you should get a second vote.
Okay.
I think that the amount of electorate representation would drastically go up, because then if you have one vote, your vote matters more. You have to collectivize your vote to get your legislative intent passed. At the same time, you have a clear and present desire to get that second vote. You suddenly have a vested interest in becoming a property owner. And you get your second vote because your property is important to you.
Doesn't that like discourage the equal representation kind of thing? I mean,
Yes.
the founders had like a whole 8-month debate in a hot house.
I don't know that this is a
because
good idea. I'm just thinking about it.
they were like, states were bugged by the idea of not having equal representation.
I think there's a good reason why I'm not a politician. And I don't know that this is a feasible. I don't know that it's a feasible line of governing, but at the same time, crazier political theories have been presented and put into practice.
Yeah, that's true. All right, well, guys, we're going to take a break here, and then we're going to come back for the second part of the theory of democracy.
We're back with the theory of democracy with Garrison, Sarah, and Kevin. That's your name. And I don't know why I'm here. I'm just gonna listen to these two.
Garrison, what do you think about democracy? I asked your political view, but
Well, I think there are problems with allowing just anyone to vote. I think it means that people can make uneducated, hasty choices in the help me out here.
election.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. In the elections. And just come back to me and I'll think of some more stuff. But
Okay.
This
But-
seems like a great time to bring up the fact that we were talking a little about rights during the break. There is no right to vote. You don't have one.
Mm-hmm.
You have a responsibility to vote.
Mm.
But nowhere.
So many people would disagree with you on that one.
They may disagree, but once again, the rights are very clearly enumerated in the Constitution, and nowhere in the Constitution is there a right to vote. There is a very well-written responsibility. You should vote, but you shouldn't vote if you're uninformed.
Mm-hmm.
I think that an uninformed vote is incredibly dangerous.
I will say this when you asked my about my stance. I kind of see this two ways now. I understand the usefulness of labels and
Okay.
and what they mean and how they can be helpful and beneficial, but it leads to animosity and separation and arguments because you're this and I'm that, so we can't have an open dialogue about our points of view. So for me, I at the moment I don't find a use for a label at the moment. Does that make sense?
I think that we should have a seminar or something about how to have a good debate with somebody you disagree with. I think that'd be helpful.
It'd be incredibly useful in this day and age. The problem, of course, is that as somebody who spent a couple of years in speech and debate in high school, a lot of that problem would just be solved by knowing how to debate.
That's a good point.
The fact of the matter is that a whole lot of people are getting into arguments,
Not
and
debates.
Not debate.
Yeah. Debates you can
really
walk
easy.
away from
Exactly.
not mad. An argument,
You bring arguments to debates.
yeah.
You don't just have arguments.
Yeah. Anyway, so
It would be an incredible beneficial. I personally think that if we're going to continue to move in the direction of having public schools, logic should definitely be something that's taught for 4 years in high school.
yeah, I don't ever think that we were really taught how to be people in high school. We were just taught how
Sort of.
information in high school.
It is it comes up to that personal responsibility thing. I feel like I was a terrible student, but I'm very well informed today because during my school years, I spent a lot of time on independent research. And I can't blame anybody from taking the skills that they took from high school and making the best that they could with them, but it's certainly not something that you would consider to be preparing you for adulthood. I feel like there are a lot of things that I could have used in high school that I wasn't taught now that I'm an adult. Taxes would have been great.
Yeah, knowing how to do your taxes, number
yeah.
one.
I can tell you right now that a W-2 was never put on my school desk.
How to write a resume. Nobody ever taught me how to write a
I was lucky
resume.
enough to get that one.
Or laundry
Yeah.
class. I mean, I think that would.
Oh, no, that was home ec, honey. I took home ec.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh man.
I must have been. I took home ec like for a couple quarters. I don't remember ever getting to learn how to do
Oh,
laundry.
but maybe
That
it's
was
my
something
mom.
taught me.
Yeah, my mom taught me how to do that, too.
Same thing. Oh my gosh, the prevalent. It's crazy to think about how few people can cook.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can cook kinda,
Mm-hmm.
and I can cook in a job sense too, because I worked in a kitchen. But
Mm-hmm.
when I look at a list of ingredients and I think about the things that my mother and my grandmother can do, it's terrifying. Because I can't do any of that.
I think, a part of that comes naturally, too.
Somewhat, but I a lot of it's got to be nurture too.
Yeah, like, if your parents, cooked while you were young.
There's definitely room, and some of it might just be aptitude. Some of it might just be a genuine interest. But I have an interest in eating.
So yeah, mine's the dishes. Like, I hate doing the dishes.
I know. I'm always the one.
Garrison. Like, I will do anything except for the dishes. I will clean the toilet, scrub the bath. Like, I will do everything. Just don't make me do the dishes. I hate it.
I have a question. So, do you guys know like whether classes like home ec and like the child's class were like targeted for women like years
Oh.
ago, because those were like kind of
Women
Women roles,
jobs.
quote unquote.
Certainly years ago, yes. I think that with the prevalence, especially the give it 10 years after, but Title IX really didn't. I think Title IX does a better job than a lot of people think. Maybe too good of a job in some cases, but certainly in classes like shop and home ec. By the time I was in high school, and this is entirely anecdotal, so take this for what you will, those classes were fairly split, shop
Right.
and home ec, in terms of male and female.
Yeah.
This is one classroom in one high school, but
Yeah, I mean, my classes were fairly split too. And especially in home ec, when we had guys in there. I mean, they may not have paid attention as much, but I think that's
and I think that a lot of the program too was like, because I briefly remember in that brief 3-month class, they tried to teach you how to buy a car, try and pique the interest of.
Oh yeah, no,
They used to have like driving exams in high school.
They still do in
Oh.
many states.
I never had
That's
to do a
interesting.
driving
If
exam.
I would have, if I would have stayed in the Illinois school system, but I think it's sophomore year they have driver's ed as part of the curriculum.
It's cool.
I really wish that they would have taught me like money management too. Like, I never learned any of that. Yeah.
I took an entrepreneur class, and that didn't help.
I took business law.
Right.
I feel like I know a little bit more about zoning.
yeah, that's cool.
That's-
I mean, technically, Garrison, you are an entrepreneur
You are.
right now.
You
Okay.
are an entrepreneur. You have entrepreneurial spirit.
No thanks to that teacher that I.
No names.
Well, I mean, and democracy here for a moment.
Yes.
That's the public school system is garbage.
Oh man.
I was just thinking about that last night too. Like, did you know that like most of our taxes that go back into the government go towards education? We spend all of our money on education.
Much of our money. I think you'll find just as many people that think that most of our money is spent on the military.
Yeah,
But
I mean that's not true though.
it's not.
No. We spend more money on education than any other program, and we still rank so poorly in national levels and international levels.
I think that we're talking about statistics here, and one of the first rules of statistics is that correlation is not causation.
Mm-hmm.
Money does not equal success.
No.
And so you look for solutions, and again, it's hard to use statistics to find those solutions, but you'll find, especially just as evidence, here's evidence that money does not solve the problem. two of the best school systems in the world, if I'm bringing up this infographic from my head correctly, are Vietnam and Ethiopia.
Huh.
And they have great school systems because they have great teachers and invested students.
Yeah, because they're willing and eager to learn.
Exactly.
Our kids are probably not so eager to learn.
I think that...
Do you think we're lacking?
No. I don't think that there's a lack of desire to learn. I think that we are stuck in a system that has been basically the same for over 100 years. And there's been no real push to change it, only a change to see the current system get worse and worse.
So
Like, it makes a little bit more sense when you think about the one-room schoolhouse dealing with 25 students and
Of
one
different
teacher.
ages.
Right, of different ages. You progress a little bit further and further and further.
Ooh.
And you get to the point where you think that classes should be made up of 25 students and one teacher in that classroom. Well, you look at it for a long enough period of time and you wonder, is that working?
Well, that kind of leads me to think, like, I never really connected with any of my teachers growing up.
Very
I hardly could connect with any classmates because of that.
The teachers that I connected, the teachers that I connected the most with, not only gave me good grades, but I didn't do any work in their class.
Right. I think I maybe got 1 A in my entire school career, and that was in college. Yeah, Sarah, you did a really good job.
Right. I like telling the story. I took a philosophy class. And in this philosophy class, I talked every day. Teacher loved me. Professor Benjamin, great guy. And I came in one day, and I needed an extension on my final paper. And he looked at me like I was crazy and was like, I already have it. I've got you marked for a B. And I'm pretty sure he was genuine. I don't think he was like winking alongside with me. I think he thought he graded my paper. And so I was like,
okay.
See you guys. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. I'll see you next quarter.
Adios, brochachos.
Have a great day. And on a merit level, I guess I did great because I got a B in that class and I learned a lot.
Right.
But on a moral standpoint, I certainly didn't deserve that B.
Somebody else probably needed an extra extension on theirs because maybe somebody just didn't turn in a paper with their
That's
name on it.
And I like to think that the professor had my philosophies from listening to me in class. He understood that I understood what he was saying. I think.
I mean, it's a philosophy class. You can go anywhere with that one.
Who knows? But I think that I was incredibly benefited by going to a private school for my K through 7th grade education. I managed to miss the 8th grade year by moving, but and going, like, if I had to be put in charge of the country, I would move towards a model where homeschooling is much more prevalent because it already is today. Many parents are just handing iPads off to their children and expecting it to do the parenting. I'm not suggesting that's a good idea for parenting. I am suggesting it might be a good idea for education.
I really like Montessori schools.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite, and I've listened to a lot of YouTube videos and podcasts about education. I mean, in Montessori schools in other countries, you can listen to what some of the students have to say coming out of those schools, and they've got a free economy in some of these schools, they're allowed to sell things. There's this kid in the class that, sells popsicles and he makes bank. And then there's that kid in the corner that really just likes to draw and take pictures of people and post them on the internet and tell them about their stories.
Those free market principles.
Yeah. It is a pretty interesting thing. And one of the main girls that I was listening to, and I might have to pull up this YouTube video and post a link to it, but she was saying boredom is the key to be able to learn, because if you're bored, you're gonna find ways to make your mind work. Because
that's very true. I think that's a very interesting way to look at. That's a very interesting way to look at boredom, as opposed to being a detriment, but rather a tool.
I think Pascal said something like, given enough time, if a human has nothing to do, they'll contemplate their own existence,
Mm-hmm.
which I guess falls in line with pretty much what you were saying. It's pretty interesting that it takes doing nothing to really, spark something.
What's more terrifying is how many people are doing nothing in this country.
And like, they're not realizing that their boredom could easily lead to something amazing.
Well, and whose responsibility is it to cowtail that? The answer, in my opinion, of course, is a businessman.
You hold on. Going back to your philosophies, though,
Well,
you were
I'm
talking
trying
about
to- well,
people
I mean,
should
it could
govern
be- it-
themselves.
It could be the government. It could
Okay.
be the government's responsibility to harness that effort. I don't think it is. I think that many things managed by the government are often messed up by the government.
Okay, no, you're right though. Businessmen should understand that people do get bored, and they should find ways to use that boredom.
It would be an incredible benefit. Like I think there was a video game that was being used to present problems to gamers,
Mm-hmm.
and they were like, "Fix this problem in a game world,"
Interesting.
and they did. And the thought process behind it was that if you put that constructive effort of boredom effectively
Into your own life.
into the world, and that's what they were doing. They were presenting these gamers with real world problems and asking them to solve it in the game world, and trying to use that data to see what we could do with it. And if we were doing that on a much more widespread scale, like if cancer research was fun, we would solve cancer.
Ooh, going back to education. This is why one thing I think that we should bring back is internships and what's it called when you apprenticeships. Yeah, I think we should bring back apprenticeships because when I was like 15, all I wanted to do was draw.
They didn't go.
And if I had but if I had an apprenticeship when I was like 15 and if I'd known that there was apprenticeships, then I would have gone for one.
So the unfortunate problem with that equation, of course, is that you were a 15-year-old, which in this country is still a child. So
I can't make my own decisions.
Exactly. It falls upon your parents to make that decision for you.
Dumb parents.
I can't. I think every day, a little aside about my personal life, I'm really great at card games. I love Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering, fun times. If I often think back to myself, if my parents had realized I was going to be good at those things when I was a child, and they put the effort that they put into football and baseball into card games, where would I be today?
Yeah.
Now, I can't blame my
parents.
Right,
you can't blame them.
But don't blame my parents.
You got to understand, like, where you could end up, like, even if you kept trying at it, like, it's like...
In many ways, I feel that the most successful people in this country and in this world are just lucky. And they are. They just so happen to be in the right place at the right time with the right circumstances to engage upon a great life.
I also think it takes a lot of hard work and dedication and pushing yourself into points where you could have those opportunities arise.
Of course it does.
Luck is one thing, but hard work and dedication.
But look at, and again, anecdotal evidence here, but look at guys like Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
You could argue that he put a lot of hard work into that, but you could make just as much of a case that he didn't. He's still a billionaire today.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take away anything from the effort that he put into it, because every effort is important.
Mm-hmm.
But luck is a primary factor in a lot of that. It's not even decision making. It's spiking.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally spiking. I have managed to put myself, and that's the hard work aspect, I have managed to put myself in the right place at the right time, with the right circumstances. And then when you look at that from a younger aspect, when you can't do it yourself, it's because my parents put me in the right place at the right time with the right circumstances.
Wouldn't that be so nice? Yeah.
I mean, I can't blame my parents for being blind. No one should blame their parents for trying their best. You can blame your parents for being bad parents, but that's up to you.
Yeah, so democracy, I think all in all, we can kind of all agree that it's got its quirks, and while we try to make things different on a daily basis, there's no hardcore fix. It has to be a slow moving progression into how we make this world better. that is pretty much, I mean...
It's an incredible aspect of democracy. Democracy comes in a lot of flavors. And we are working with the flavor that we like the best right now. And chances are, when it stops working, we will change it until we decide that collectively we don't care much for democracy anymore.
If I say that vanilla would be the flavor of democracy right now, would that be like...
I think vanilla would be the flavor
proper
of, I would say...
the White House?
No, I'm trying to think of the actual type of democracy it would be. I would put it as a... You could call it for an oligarchical democracy, I suppose.
The flavor of oligarchy.
That's not the vanilla flavor's fault. Vanilla didn't ask to be made vanilla.
Or maybe Neapolitan. You know that Neapolitan?
Hey, that's what we should be. Civic nationalism's great, in my opinion.
All right. Thank you for chiming in today for the theory of democracy with Kevin Wahl.
Hello. Thank you for letting me be here. I had a great time. It was actually amazing.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Garrison.
Hope you want to stop by again.
I fully intend to. This was awesome.